Hello, everybody. Dave Beavers here with Giant Slayer Consulting, and my partner's on his way. The weather's held him up just a little bit, but he'll be here shortly, Bill Kraft. But today, we're going to talk about the law of the pitcher. Now, we've been doing this video series on Thursdays from John Maxwell's book, The 21 Laws of Leadership. And today is a really good lesson, not a bad lesson in the entire book, but today is the law of the pitcher. And I hope that everybody had a good Christmas and a happy new year. And I wish you the best for 2018. But I want to challenge everybody out there, because my goal is to add value to you. And if I can get you to thinking about your life, what you want to accomplish with your life, your goals for your family, for your business, for your ministry, whatever it is that you're wanted to achieve for 2018. I really am hoping to add value to you in those areas. So that's my goal, is to add value to you. So I'm going to challenge you with a question for 2018. What is your personal growth plan for 2018? Now, we can have hopes and desires and wishes, but if we don't have some type of goals to help us meet milestones throughout the year, we're probably going to let another year go by and not accomplish our dreams and our goals. So my challenge to you is, and Bill just arrived. Bill, do you mind getting that door for me? Shut that door. I'm really glad he's here today. He's not only my sidekick, he's my partner, and he helps keep me lined out. So it's a pleasure to have Bill with us again today. And like I said, for 2018, the goal for me is to add more value to you. So this free training on Thursdays is for you. And next week, we're going to change the format a little bit. We're going to go to Be Live TV, which is a different format, which helps us streaming a little better. It helps me keep up with the comments, helps people to comment on the session better, and that's really what I'm hoping for you to do, is give us some feedback, give us your questions, give us some insight, share your experiences with us, because when you do, it helps me to grow too. Because you know what? No two people experience anything exactly the same, do we, Bill?
No.
So when we communicate and share with the goal of learning more to become a better person, then when we communicate together, we all grow. And that's the power of a mastermind group. When we come together with one mindset, each with our own individual thoughts and ideas, experiences, it helps shape us and helps us to shape our lives. So that's the whole goal, is to add value to you. Because you know what? I want to add value to you so you can add value to others in your life too. Like we said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So I want you to be a more positive influence in the lives of others around you. And I want to be a positive influence to you too. And I'm sure that's what Bill wants to do. He's a great influence on me. I love talking to Bill because, man, he challenges me to think. And when he challenges me to think, it causes me to look inside myself and see, am I growing? Am I improving? Do I need to change something in my life? And that's what it's all about, continual growth. So let's get started on the lesson today. Let me share the screen with you. And of course, on my Facebook post, you'll notice that I left you a link that you can go to my website. Just click that link and go to my website and download the free PowerPoint lesson that goes with this lesson today. And all the lessons so far, except for lessons 1 and 2, and I could go back and put those on, are on there. So you can pull those PowerPoints down, use them as a guide to help yourself and also to help maybe teach your team. And I highly recommend that if you have influence with anybody, and guess what? You do. Everybody does. To read this book, The 21 Laws of Leadership. All right, so let's get into the first day's lesson. Is the law of the pitcher. Bill, tell us a little bit about this model we got on this screen here, the 5 levels of leadership. Just briefly tell us what this really represents.
This is where you start out with level 1 is the position you have. And that's, whether it's a manager, whether it's a parent, whether it's a teacher, you have some sort of influence because of your position, not because of anything you do.
Now, let me ask you this. Maybe I'm just a worker on a team with no real position of authority. Do I have an official position there, or?
You're going to have position just by seniority, by the people you're around, how long you've been there. There's all sorts of dynamics. And there's going to be a dynamic there where you have a position,
So I have
a
a
pecking
position
order.
here. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it may not be an official position,
Yeah.
but you have a position in that group.
Okay. Good.
And then you lead by permission. And that's where you get enough trust, enough in there where people will follow you just because they trust you
Yeah.
and they want to. And then production is where you get intentionally leading by permission, and you're doing it in a direction that helps the organization, helps the, whether it's a church, whether it's a family, or whether it's a company.
Yeah.
And then you go to people development, and this is where you start getting into the really good part where you're multiplying people. You're actually adding value to people and helping to bring them up. And then the next one's personhood. And that's where you're really securing yourself and you're actually going off and doing this. And, you develop leaders as part of who you are,
Yeah.
not necessarily to make the organization grow.
Well, that's good. And this fifth level, which is personhood, what John sometimes calls it the pinnacle, is a position where you've automatically raised up several leaders, and people look to you as an authority in that area of how to do it. Those people respect you because of what you've done for them and lifted them up. And so this is a high level of leadership that not a lot of people get to. And I think the reason is because they try to skip level 4. We go for production, and because we've gotten great results, we think those results automatically take us to the position of a high level leader. When you talk to some leaders, and they say, well, I've made a lot of money for this company, I've produced a lot of results. But when you look back and say, do you have a replacement? Do you have people that can step in and do what you do? And if they can't say that, then they've skipped that level 4, that people development. And this is a critical step. We can get stuck on level 3 production and get addicted to our results. But there's going to be a time when we're going to hit a snag. Things are going to slow down. And if we haven't raised up enough leaders around us and give them permission to share their insight and share their talents and abilities with the team, we can get stuck, and the whole burden of that responsibility feels like it's on our shoulders, doesn't it?
It does.
So we really want to make sure that if we are producing, we have to stop a little bit and look around us and say, who is my next person I'm going to invest in to begin to develop and raise up? Okay. John says for the law of the pitcher, it takes a leader to know a leader, show a leader, and to grow a leader. And that's so true. As I began becoming a student of leadership, it's kind of opened my eyes up to look around and say, where are the potential leaders at? Where are the ones who have the most potential? Now, not everybody wants to be a, quote, leader. Everybody does have influence, and they lead to some aspect. But some people do desire to use their natural talents and abilities, develop them, and become a positional leader and start through that process of this 5-tier level. And so really the thesis of this lesson today is people do what they see. Now, I can be the boss, and I can tell you what to do. And as long as I tell you what to do continually, you're probably going to do it, or we're going to have problems, right? But really, when it comes down to it, over a period of time, people watch our lives, and they look to see if we're genuine, if we're real, if we care about them. And if they do believe that we have their best interests in heart, we become a model for them. And people do what they see. We can be a good model or a bad model. We'll get into that just a little bit today. All right, so the law of the pitcher. All right, so let me go to the next slide here. We're just going to do a quick review today. Just tell them about what the first 6 laws were, Bill.
Well, the law of the lid says that your leadership is like a lid or a ceiling on your organization. And what that's telling us is that, our leadership is going to be here. Our ability to lead is going to be at a certain level. And if we don't raise that level of ourselves, we're not going to be able to raise our organization above the level of ourselves.
Exactly.
The law of influence says leadership is simply about influencing people, nothing more and nothing less. And that's telling us that, when we're leading people, we're influencing people. If we're not influencing them, we're not leading them.
Hang on a minute, Bill. I've
got the sound on.
I've got the sound on here. Hang on. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then the law of process. Leadership is developed daily, not in a day. Leadership is not, it's not an event. It's not something that's conferred on us. It's something we develop little by little and accrue over time. Kind of like in this cold weather, you got water running down the road, and if it's freezing, a big ice cube won't freeze up, but it'll just freeze a little at a time until
Yeah.
you get a thick layer of ice.
Yeah, that's true.
And then law of navigation. Anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. And it's easy to say, okay, let's go left or right, but it's not always easy to know when to go left and when to go right.
That's so true. Yeah, a lot of folks say, well, let me take the wheel, let me lead you a little bit. But if they don't see the big picture and know what to avoid and places to go that for the future,
You may end up coming back to where you are.
exactly. Yeah. John Fate, a member of the John Maxwell team, gave a good analogy of this. And John wrote the book and identified this law and taught in this book. But Scott Fay was one of his students, but Scott Fay is a very successful businessman, and he actually was in lawn care. And he asked John if he could be his person who took care of his lawns. He wanted to give that back to John, so they become friends through that. And he wanted to take John out on the yacht one day, and the ship captain couldn't get there, but he still wanted the ship to come by so he could pick up John. So they're waiting on John's lawn down in Florida, and here comes this guy driving up through the sound, and he runs this thing up on a sandbar, and he didn't know how to navigate the channel. And it was a great illustration. John and Scott had a good laugh about it. Scott was embarrassed at first, but John let him off the hook. He said, and this is a little bit about the law of navigation. You got to know where to miss those spots that's going to get you hung up. That was a great story.
And the law of addition. Leaders add value by serving others. And it goes back to the quote by Zig Ziglar. If you give enough people what they want, you're going to get what you want.
Yeah.
And we got to think of our leadership as what can I do for someone else, rather than how can I get them to do something for me.
Yeah.
And the law of solid ground tells us that trust is the foundation of leadership, and that's we have to be really important. I mean, it's really important that people understand and trust us, and not only that they trust our integrity, but they trust us to not steer them wrong, or not to surprise them, not to put them on the spot.
This law right here sounds like, well, this is just a given. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And it really is simple. But it takes a lot of work to get to that place. Now, and I want to challenge you, if you are a leader, and like I said, that's a person of influence, whether it's a parent, teacher, coach, a manager, supervisor, whoever it is, ask yourself, do you trust your team? And if you don't trust your team as a whole, guess what? They don't trust you either. So how do you build that trust?
Yeah, and the other important thing too is you have to be transparent as to not surprise them.
Yeah.
So that people know when a big change comes on, that they're ready for it.
Right.
They've got to trust you not to jerk the rug out from under them, so to speak.
Yeah. And it happens so much, and we don't do it intentionally. I don't think any leader gets up and says, I'm gonna sabotage my team today.
Yeah.
But we do so many times because like I said, if we don't have a personal growth plan to become more aware of who we are and the people around us and what it takes to build a dynamic team, then we're leaving a lot of potential on the table, and we're never going to get to a place where we can start developing people. We don't want to multiply people who don't trust people.
Well, the other important thing about having that plan too is that then 3 weeks or 3 months down the line what you're going to do, so that you can prepare the people now for what's going to happen in 3 weeks.
Yeah. And it goes back to the first law of the lid.
Yeah.
If we're not growing as a leader ourselves, we're
banging.
The team is bumping their head.
Yeah.
On our
incompetence.
Yeah, incompetence. So if I want my team to grow, I've got to grow. They come up to my level because it takes the leader to go the way, show the way, and to take their team. So that's great. Now, law number 7 says the law of respect, and this just says people naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves. Now, you may be the leader on the team, but you may have someone on your team who has more respect from the rest of the team, and they'll follow that person. Now, that's not always a bad thing, but if you don't recognize that, it becomes very, very difficult. So we have to learn to lead through people.
Yeah.
We let them lead, as long as we keep them collectively working toward the organizational goals. We give them opportunities to lead, and we let them use that influence to bring their team up to meet that goal. Because it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about the goal, isn't it? It's about the team. The law of intuition says that leaders evaluate everything with a leadership bias. It means, we're wired a certain way. We see things a certain way. Our background, our environment, just the way we think causes us to see things the way we see them. And we have to open up and help people to use their intuition, pull from their intuition so it makes us a better leader. So we have to trust our intuition. It's not something you can teach. It's something you catch and you understand. All right, the law of magnetism says you are who you attract, and that's the law of attraction. We project out around us who we are, and that either repels people or draws people to us. So birds of a feather do flock together. The law of connection says that leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. This means, if your team doesn't think you care about them, and if you don't take time to get to know them a little bit, where they are as a person, what's important to them, what are their aspirations, what have they already accomplished, where they're trying to go in life. If we don't connect on that level, we're not really going to get their heart and their what they bring to the table is not going to be everything they've got. They're going to leave a lot in reserve. The law of the inner circle says a person's potential is determined by those closest to him. We're pretty much the sum average of our 5 closest people, aren't we? So we have to improve our inner circles. We have to be helping develop the circles we're in, and that comes by growing ourselves. The law of empowerment says people do what they see. I've got that backwards, but the law of empowerment really is about how to empower leaders, give them the tools and resources they need to become their best. Because when they become their best, our team becomes our best, and it lifts us up too, doesn't it? It lifts the whole team up. And if the team's going up and I'm being a good team player, I'm going to go up naturally. All right. So the law picture. So we're going to talk about this in 3 phases. Bill, tell them about the 3 phases we do this in.
We learn the law, and that's how is it, what is the law? What is it that we're supposed to get from that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we live the law, and that's that's really good for the law of the picture, because that's how we actually do it and see it
And model it.
and
Yeah.
model it.
Yeah.
And then we lead others to the law. That's teaching it and passing it on.
We can't give somebody something we don't have, do we?
That's right.
So we have to live it out too. All right, so let's talk about learning the law a little bit. And it takes a leader to raise up a leader. Bill, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, followers, it takes a leader to raise up a leader. Followers can't raise up a leader, and the institution, the program, can't lift up the leader. It takes a leader who knows what he's doing or knows what she's doing, and is able to show the people, how to influence others.
A lot of times you'll look at an organization, they say, well, we have a leadership development program. But really, a lot of times it's a program that's out here on the web somewhere. And if it doesn't have a person who's really concerned about raising up leaders in there and taking those tools and resources and helping people learn it, teaching them how to live it out, and then actually multiplying it, then it's just a program and an institutional program. So it takes people to make that go.
Yeah, and leadership is relational. So if you don't have a relational process, you're not going to have a relational experience, and you're not going to be able to teach that.
It's all about people, isn't it?
Yeah. And the potential of an organization depends on the growth of its leadership. Everything rises and falls in leadership, whether it's good or bad. So, that's kind of like back to the law of the lid. If you don't have that leadership there, the organization is not going to be able to grow with it.
Everything rises and falls on it, doesn't it? And if you're a leader, and I've heard this, and I've even said this, man, if my team would just step it up, if my team would do better, we could accomplish our goals. And at the time, I'm looking at situations and results, and I didn't know at the time that I was actually projecting my weak leadership skills back onto my team. And so when I finally realized, it's up to me, it does really rise and fall on me. When I talk to my boss, he's not going to ask me about my team. He's going to ask me, what are you doing to develop your team?
And that's kind of a cue to look in the mirror when you ask yourself, if it wasn't for my team.
Yeah. So it's so critical that if we see these problems on our team, we got to look back in and say, something in me's got to change.
Yeah.
So I've got to grow. I've got to change. All right. Let's talk a little bit about living the law of the picture. And first of all, I think you have to clarify the picture, don't you?
Yeah.
There's a different law called the law of the big picture. But right now we're talking about the picture that people are seeing in us. What kind of picture is it? Can we clarify? So the first thing we need to do, we need to identify the mission. What are we trying to accomplish? What is it? And this answers the question of why we exist. Why are we here? Why am I on this team? What's the organization or team trying to do? Even with a family, sometimes we don't think about a family being dysfunctional. But if the parents don't have a goal for their children, and I'm not saying pick out their future for them, but if we're not being parents who empower our children to be the best person that they are designed to be, and helping them to be all they can be, we can get confused and become highly dysfunctional. It works the same way on any kind of team. What's the second one, Bill?
Vision. And vision provides the picture, and it answers the question of what. And it's important, with that we're actually modeling that vision.
Yeah,
Because one of the things that a trainer I once had used to tell us all the time was, if you're not doing what you teach, you're teaching something else.
exactly.
So, if you're not doing those things, you're showing, they're learning something. They're learning what you're doing. They're not learning what you're telling
That's so true. And there's a couple of good stories and illustrations in this
them.
chapter on the law of the picture that talks about and uses a military example of a leader who was actually sabotaging the team and looking for ways to expose their weaknesses. And the team began to hate this person, and they actually were wondering who was going to kill him in battle, and it wasn't going to be the enemy. It was going to be somebody on the team, and it was a very negative situation. And then it changed. Same group, same team began to improve as the leadership changed and improved. So if our vision isn't clear, if it doesn't answer the question of what we're trying to accomplish, mission really tells us more about how we're going to accomplish it. And then finally is third is strategy. Bill, tell us a little bit about strategy.
And strategies, that's a plan. What's the next thing we're going to do? And it's always, we have to know what the next thing is to get to the things down the road.
Yeah.
So it's, how are we going to get where we want to be?
So that's so true. Mission tells how we're going to do it. With our values, our core values, and the strategy tells us a detailed plan of how we're going to get it. And I don't want anybody to think that you get married to a strategy. You get married to the vision. You get married to the vision. This is what we want to accomplish. It needs to be bold. It needs to be compelling, or people are going to lose interest in it. So as a leader, we have to communicate that vision in that way. And if we don't believe in it, we can't communicate it that way. So we need to do some evaluating. Am I in the right place, leading the right team, in the right organization? And if I can't get behind the vision and find it compelling, then I'm going to keep my team down here too. They're never going to catch it.
Yeah.
And then the mission, like I said, how are we going to do it? We're going to do it with integrity. We'll do it with our values. We're going to do it a certain way. And a strategy tells us exactly what we're going to do to accomplish that. So without a strategy, we're planning to fail. What's the old quote? If you fail to plan, you're failing.
You're planning to fail. But you also have to have a strategy that's flexible enough to meet the changing conditions.
That's what I'm talking about. Don't get married to the plan. Get married to the big goal, and your strategy may have to change. But you got to have one. You got to start somewhere, and you make adjustments as you go because life isn't perfect. A year from now, it's never going to look exactly like we thought it was going to look.
Well, you use the military example. You go back to that. No plan survives the first contact with the enemy.
Yeah.
But the goal is still to overwhelm the enemy.
Yeah. And that's a good illustration. Great. And I like that, Bill. All right. Followers are always watching. That's what we just talked about. They're watching you. Are you going to be the model? And I like the story in here. It talks about one of the officers who was trying to move his group to a destination, and they got pinned down in a ditch. And he tried everything to get him to move because they were going to get cut to ribbons in that ditch. And he yelled at him. He inspired him. He gave him orders. And finally got in the middle of the road. And with bullets zipping all around him, he began to yell at him and motivate him to get out of that ditch and get moving or they'll go get killed. And years later, one of his people that he led come back and said he remembered that day. That's what got him out of that ditch. He said, you were brave enough and bold enough to get out in the middle of the road and say, we're going, or we're going to die. And he risked his life to get that team moving. And as a leader, sometimes we don't always risk our life, but we do risk our reputation. Yeah. We do risk a lot when we step out and say, you know what, this is bad. But if we don't get moving, we're all going to die.
Sometimes people have to see someone to see that it can be done.
Exactly. And it's inspiration.
Yeah.
And so we need to be a picture of inspiration for our team. And, that's just the role of a leader. And if we can't accept that role, then maybe we need to reevaluate, what we're doing. All right. So what's the next thing, Bill?
It's easier to teach than do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll hear the saying, those who can do and those who can't teach.
Yeah.
Well, it's easier to actually teach something than it is to do something.
I love, sometime back I heard of a way to talk about this, a comparison is kind of like a traffic cop or a tour guide.
Yeah.
A traffic cop stands in the middle of the street, he points which direction. And that role was important, isn't it? Keeps the traffic moving, keeps people getting run over. But sometimes you get lost, and that traffic cop's not going to be able to help you. You need a tour guide who's going to say, you go down here, come with me, walk with me. Let me show you here. And as a leader, we need to be more of the tour guide to take people on the trip with us and show them and give them the experiences and expose them to things so that they know where they're going, what it looks like. A traffic cop doesn't have time. Both roles are essential.
He can show you where, but he can't show you the why.
He can't. Yeah. All right. So it's easier to teach than do. I like that. No, don't be a traffic cop. Be a tour guide.
Be a tour guide.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the third phase, and that's leading others to the law of the picture. Now, we need to ask questions when you hear or make statements like this. And a lot of times we got some inner dialogue going on.
Yeah, we always have that inner dialogue.
And if we examine it, sometimes we might find out we're asking ourselves these questions. So if we're having these thoughts and questions in our own mind, we need to do a few things. So when we have meetings, I lay out the vision. My team seems to agree, but there's no action. Now, as a leader, have you ever done that? I planned a meeting all week, stayed up all weekend, planned this Monday meeting, and I laid out the vision, and my team agrees with it. It's a great idea, but there is no action. There's a problem there in their bill.
Yeah, there's got to be a call out. There's got to be an action plan. There's got to be a step.
Something's missing in that plan, isn't it? Yeah, the strategy might be missing, and a whole series of things of role responsibilities, assignment, delegation, all that.
And if they don't see you taking steps to reach the goal, they're not going to follow someone. They're not going to follow if there's no one leading.
If I'm a leader and if I'm not accountable to my responsibilities,
yeah,
I can't expect my team to be accountable and responsible.
Right.
So as the leader, I'm accountable and responsible for certain things that my team can't do. But I'm also accountable and responsible for making sure my team does what they need to do. So it flows downhill, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. All right, what's the second question?
Why do you might hear this either in your self-talk, self-discussion, or inner dialogue, or you might hear it from your colleagues. Why do some ideas get traction and results right away, but others I can't seem to get any buy-in or action on? And that's just saying, there may be, you're not creating an action step. You're not, you've got an action is kind of the bridge between our thoughts and reality. And if we don't start that, who is?
Yeah, and it takes us to the third point here. When change becomes necessary, start with you. Lead by example.
Yeah.
Be the picture people want to see. And as a leader, well, back to the second question: why do some of my ideas get traction and results right away, but others I can't seem to get any buy-in or action? Leaders, for the most part, usually are creative. They're inspired, and sometimes we chase rabbits. Sometimes the collective results that we're trying to achieve gets diluted with too much activity, with the vision not being clear. The main goal, I like what Bob Proctor says. He said, keep the main thing the main thing. And sometimes we get so sidetracked and not staying responsible and accountable to that main goal that we have too much going on, and our team will begin to pick up on that and think, this is not going to stick. We're not going to keep this up. So why get involved with it?
And if we're going off on a different thing, you're going to confuse the team as what is really important.
Yeah.
Is the priority the main thing, or is it this thing that we're chasing?
Yeah, exactly. I heard an illustration, and I had to think about this for a few days, but when you tell your team, if you're in sales and retail, and you tell your team the most important thing is customer service, and it's not sales, what are you telling your team?
Don't worry about selling.
Don't worry about selling. And then eventually down the road, what happens?
You're not going to have any sales.
You don't have any sales. So what's the point of
customer service without sales?
So at first it kind of caught me off guard when I got to thinking about it. It's so true. Yeah, we're here to sell. Now how we do it has to do with the vision and the mission statement. But the vision is to make the money for whatever reason. If your goal is to increase the membership in your church, then it needs to be increase the membership in your church. And now there's a whole lot of factors that do that, but we got to keep it streamlined toward that main goal. And if we can't do that, we're telling our team something else, and we're confusing them, just like you said. We need to make sure it's very clear. And I also heard too, you need to at least tell your team 7 times what the main goal is. And that sounds redundant. Most leaders won't do that because they think it's redundant. They think they're insulting their team, the intelligence of the team. But people don't really need to be told what to do all the time. They need to be reminded. And we need to keep it clear because distractions happen, lives happen. And if we don't do that, your team's going to go over here and build its own little silo. So we end up working on its own project, and they can justify that it is important, and it is.
Yes.
But is it lined up with the main goal? We got to keep that team collectively working together with a clear vision. We have to be, and we have to model that, be the picture of it. And the fourth thing is the most powerful action a leader can do is to be the example. Give them a picture of what it looks like in action. That's what we've been talking about the whole time, is be that role model. Now, is that easy?
That's hard.
It's hard, isn't it?
That's the hard part.
But if we keep the main thing, it gets easier.
It's easier.
We can streamline a lot of useless activities, and that's what we need to do, is get some things off the table. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. We may come back and do some of this later if it lines up and we need it to achieve this main goal. But we need to constantly assess and figure out what we need to be communicating to our team. All right, Bill, let's talk a little bit about the action plan. And there's a way, that this teaching, whether you think it's good or great or whatever, that's up to you. But there's no use taking any kind of training without putting it into play immediately.
Yeah.
We lose it, don't we, Bill?
We do. And it's, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done.
It's in the back of your head. I heard this one time. It was great. I meant to put it in place, but if we don't put it in place right away and start some action toward it, we're more likely going to lose it.
The best way I've heard it put is, when everything's said and done, more will be said than done.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? We talked about it, and that's what happens. Some of those meetings we talked about.
Yeah.
We talk about it. Great ideas, but no traction, no action.
And it's, this first bullet point, it's really a two-step thing. You've got to take some time in there, because you make a list of your core values. Do that first. Then you think back on your last month or so.
Yeah.
And you compare the behaviors and the actions that you've taken in the last month with that list of core values. And after you do that, have you lived by them?
Yeah.
And have you set an example for others to live by those values?
Yeah.
Or by those organizational values?
And that's so true, and I was just talking this morning to someone about, at one time when I was in a leadership position, and I had several people on my team. We dealt with, thousands of customers a week, and I started out pretty good. I got myself in a little rut for a couple of years. And then I got into this blame game, and I began to blame the company and my team. But when I look back, I thought, what kind of example have I been for the rest of my team? If they go back to their teams and communicate the same message I'm communicating, then the whole team's going to dissolve. So we have to come back and look and say, have I really lived out my core values? It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing out around me. Have I lived it out? Have I been that picture of example through the good times? It's easy to do in the good times. When things get tough, that's when it really gets hard to live them out. And we have to ask ourselves, have I lived them out? And to do that, we need to be vulnerable, don't we?
Yes, we do.
I'm not even sure I spelled that word right, but
that looks right.
But we truly need to be vulnerable. We need to come back to our team and say, listen, if we want our team to be honest about their weaknesses and flaws, we have to do it ourselves. We have to come back and say, you know what? I blew it. I've blown it. We can't be the emperor with no clothes and walk around buck naked and everybody else sees it, but we don't admit to it. So they already see that we're naked. They already know we've got problems. But when we come back and say, I've blown it. I need some help. I've got to work on these areas. I promise you I'll work on these areas. That liberates our team to say, you know what, I've got some issues too.
And it's back to solid ground too. We have to let people have the trust that if they provide us with feedback, we're going to listen to it.
Yeah. The greatest time that I made a breakthrough with any of my kids when I was raising kids was when I finally said, you know what, I don't have all the answers, and I've made some bad decisions. I own them, and I'm responsible for them, but everybody here's paying the price for them, and I'm sorry. So I want to improve. I want to become better. I want to hear what you got to say. How's this affected you in your job or your responsibility, what you've been trying to do? I want to remove those obstacles and barriers for you. Yeah. And I got to be vulnerable to do that. And I can't get offended when someone tells me, this is what I see from you. We have to be open enough to say, you're right, and I'll work on that. So vulnerability, being open about our weaknesses and flaws. And I'm not talking about airing my dirty laundry. I'm not talking about going about every little mistake and say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. That's a confidence issue.
Yeah.
But if I'm confident enough in myself to say, I've got some problems I'm working on, that helps my team. to be more honest about theirs, and we can work it together. That helps us to embrace conflict. We avoid conflict like the plague. But when we lay the issues on the table and we work through those issues, we trust each other more, and then we're more likely to work on the conflicting issues to get past them because we begin to trust each other. What's the next thing we need to do, Bill?
You list through 3 to 5 things you want your team to do better, and then you get to be the change that you want to see, because then you grade your own performance on those 3 to 5 things.
Yeah.
And do you want your team to do better on those, or do you want yourself to do better?
So, grade your performance on those things, and make them specific.
Yeah, it's got to be specific.
Yeah, am I communicating honestly with my team? Am I holding myself accountable? Am I holding my team accountable? Those are just some examples that you could use, when you're leading a team. Am I being the example? Am I setting the picture, the tone for what I want from others? Now, if we're not, we got some work to do. Most of us, we've all got something to work on, so we can think of 3 to 5 things. All right, well, that's it for this week, and I'm super excited for 2018. We're gonna share some more things with you. We're going to expand our arsenal of tools, because you know what Giant Slayer Consulting is all about. It's about slaying the giants of ineffective leadership. And Bill, I'm going to put you on the spot here,
Okay.
but where do those giants reside?
They reside within us, and in each of us.
We all have envy. We all have jealousy. Sometimes we have unhealthy competition. Sometimes our speech isn't productive. It is, sometimes it's counterproductive. Sometimes our teamwork principles aren't what they need to be. We've got internal issues that we need to expose and pull up. That only happens when we get on a personal growth program. So it takes courage. Most people, 97 to 98% of people in the world, don't have a personal growth plan. And it's not because they just say, I don't need one most of the time. It's because deep down inside, we're afraid of what we might find. And it's not a bad thing to find them.
No.
But it's a bad thing to leave them unchecked, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
We influence people, and we are either helping people or hurting people. To do that, we gotta be the pitcher. So be the pitcher. Be a person who says, I'm on a growth plan. I want to grow myself personally. I want to help you grow, but I'm going to be the example and set the example for you. So that's it for this week. You guys stay warm. I know it's going to be tough this week, but they're saying by Sunday we should have some better weather. So
above freezing.
Yeah, above freezing. That's a heat wave, isn't it?
It is.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. You guys have a great week.